I want to welcome the GMs and the wives, the godly men and the warm, inviting, feminine, empathetic women out there. Now, in today's video topic, I want to talk about how the spirits of certain sins, or just spirits in general, may try to attack you in your dreams when you're trying to break any kind of generational curse, or if you're trying to just be delivered from these kinds of spirits or these sins overall. My name is Thaddeus, and this is the Regal Change YouTube channel. And I want to announce that the school community, the all in one community and course directive, has been launched. And if you want to learn more about this, you can look at the Regal Change Academy URL in the description box below. This is going to be a place where you'll be able to level up within the community, and you'll also be able to share your experience with people involved in the community, and there will be different courses for you to try and different classes for you to try so that you can improve your overall skills in the physical, emotional, and spiritual realm and domain for yourself. Now, back to the video topic for today. So, this is something that I think a lot of people misunderstand about being better, okay? Life is not always about being better or doing better. We can always do better, right? But what exactly does that really mean? And why do we want to do better? Is it not the case that the most significant gift that God has ever given us is the gift of our imagination? But also, our imagination is the thing that can keep us from progressing and from moving to a new place in life. Our imagination and our fears can amplify, and not only that, but it's also it's the fear itself can be amplified by our imagination. Oftentimes the reason that people don't want to change is because they like to be where they're at because they're used to it. That's it. They don't want to go somewhere else because they don't know if they have the capacity or the places to go to move other places. But here's the thing. If you've ever gone through a maze, right? Think about if you've ever been through a maze. What's better, to stay in the maze in one spot or to try to continue and go to different places and try to get out? Well, if you just stay in one spot in the maze, well, you're never going to get out anyway. So what it's supposed to be the case is, if you want to get out of the maze, that is, and you want to be delivered from the maze itself, you have to start moving into unknown territory. And that can be kind of frightening. So when you do try to move out of certain parts of the maze itself, the part that looks familiar is going to be sometimes the thing that you go back to. And I've said this before on my channel, and I'll say it again. The mind will repeat what the heart does not heal. So you're going to go through a place, if you're in the maze of life and you find yourself repeating certain patterns, it's probably because you're stuck in one section of the maze and you don't know how to get out. You don't know what it's like to be outside of that section in the maze. So now, instead of seeking to be delivered or wanting to be delivered, whenever you get to an unknown territory, it's almost like your mind forces you to go back because you don't want to even imagine what's outside of that unknown territory. But here's the thing. It's far better to be in the unknown territory and just to be moving somewhere than it is to be in the same place and not going anywhere at all. Stagnation is death by any stretch of the imagination. Okay? And this is one of the reasons why, if you are stuck in a certain kind of sin, a loophole of sin, let's say, whether it's lust, greed, wrath, envy, whatever seven deadly sin you are about in an unfortunate way. For me, myself, what I like to do is sometimes in my consultations, I'll ask people, what 3 sins do they think that they need to struggle or they need to work on the most and what they struggle with the most? And based off of their answer, then we can cater to how the consultation is going to run or how we can help this person together. Because whenever we're talking with each other one-on-one, these are going to be the kinds of conversations that we have that are likely going to be uncomfortable. They're likely going to expose certain blind spots that you may have. And they're also going to be ways that if you don't change it, there's nothing that's going to change within your circumstances. Any kind of change that you want to see out in the world is going to have to change first within here. And then, even then, you're not even going to be able to change everybody outside of you or everything outside of you. Think about the last time that someone showed up exactly to your life as they should have been or as they ought to have been. Probably never, right? And that's not because everybody in the world is a terrible human being. It's because everybody has their own free agency and everybody can do what they want. You can do what you want. However, how that impacts your life in the present, in the past, and down the road is going to be another story altogether. So if you really want to, and this is going to be a very much exaggerated example for emphasis, if you want to smoke all of the hard drugs or do all of the hard drugs or whatever and drink alcohol until you almost die every night, that's your choice. That's your choice. If you don't want to take care of yourself and you want to get fat and lazy and you want to sit on the couch watching Netflix and playing video games or whatever, that's your choice. You can do that. But, and guess what? I still will have unconditional love for these people because God above commands me to do so, but I absolutely will not respect you. There's nothing that you are doing that is ever improving anybody's lives in a positive sense of direction. And even when I say the word improve, what I mean is help people realize what this reality is and seeing through what everybody now calls the matrix, right? The only thing that I'm concerned with for the rest of my life is helping people realize the matrix and then getting out of it. Because I've been, let's say, out of the matrix now for nearly 5 years. Like I started to see the matrix 5 years ago, five and a half years ago, maybe. And I suddenly got this sense that, okay, something is definitely not right, but something feels very good about going to this maddening beauty of a place in my mind. Because it's almost like I found sanity in sanity. I found sanity in insanity. And then, because at that time, to everybody else, it seemed like I was going insane. I mean, I didn't tell anybody about the stuff that was going on or like the dreams that I was having or how I was literally seeing demons in people's faces or something like that. Like I was seeing all of these different kinds. My spiritual awakening was very intense. I had a very intense, it was about 2 years of heavy psychological distress. And there was no therapist that could possibly have helped me at that time because they don't know. Like, they don't know what this kind of stuff is. They know the practical side, but they don't know the philosophical, psychological, and spiritual combination and culmination that happens all together. And a lot of these therapists, I mean, this is what's so crazy to me is that a lot of these therapists out here have, on the surface level, they understand dynamics of relationships. They understand boundaries. And yet, when I was asking these therapists about their lives, and I was just like, I know we're here for me, but what does your life look like? Like, what kind of healthy relationships do you have? Can you tell me about that? And what exactly does that look like? Because I really didn't know. I had no idea. I was in the section of the maze of life that healthy relationship, What is that? I have no idea how to even develop a healthy relationship with myself. Like, I had a very terrible self-negative talk. Very terrible. I would constantly bully myself. And this is where I started to realize, because when I was nearly 200 pounds 3.5 years ago or so, I looked at myself in the mirror and I told myself, okay, this is what you are. You are a fat, lazy person that really needs to get his life together. Like, you've got the spiritual stuff, sure. But now you need to get the actual practicality stuff. If you really want a family, if you really want what you say you want, son. And I looked at myself in the mirror saying this kind of stuff. If you really want what you want, son, you've got to make it. You've got to create this stuff. And so that's exactly what I did. And then from then on, I had heavy dreams, heavy dreams, where I would be fighting the spiritual side of everything going on in my life. And even to this day, I still have spiritual warfare in my dreams. And the most important thing for you to understand during spiritual warfare is that the dream is going to reflect how you operate in your psychological consciousness. So, for example, one of the dreams that I had about 5 years ago, one of the first dreams that really stood out to me for some reason was I was climbing. It was very dark. It was a very dark, dreary place. And I was climbing with Gollum and Sam from Lord of the Rings. And for those that don't know, you'll have to just look it up. Otherwise, the story's not gonna make a little bit of sense. So anyway, I was climbing with Frodo and I was climbing with Sam and Gollum, and I was basically Frodo in this situation. And we were climbing the mountaintop, and then when we got to the top of the mountain, there was that tunnel. And there was the tunnel there, and suddenly Sam disappeared. Sam was just gone. And then Gollum, his eyes like popped out like a slinky. Like his eyeballs were attached to slinkies. And so they were bouncing like this. And then his whole limbs, all of his limbs started bouncing like that as well. And then down this dark tunnel, I saw a very dark figure that I still don't know exactly what it was. It wasn't necessarily an alien, but it wasn't necessarily human either. And it was speaking unto me in a voice that I knew intuitively. Like, it was a very ancient, like, tribal, like, voice. And I understood it, what it meant, but the words themselves, they were speaking like Leo Unkawe. I don't even know what that means. I've looked it up. I have no clue. But when I woke up from the dream, it was as if I was battling for my life to get through this tunnel, where this entity, whatever this spirit was almost trying to cast a spell on me to keep me from speaking. That's what it felt like. And it felt like I was being completely bombarded in this spiritual sense, where it was as if there was this dark, ancient curse of a force that was trying to suppress me from speaking or from seeing. And that's what I got from the Gollum thing as well. And even the limbs and such, like, even in retrospect, thinking about the dynamic of the dream, it was very haunting for a while. But that was one of my first dreams where I encountered what you would call spiritual warfare. And spiritual warfare is essentially anything that's trying to keep you in a section of the maze of life. That's essentially what spiritual warfare is. So it's trying to keep you from going out to different sections and trying to keep you from expanding your knowledge base and your spirituality base and getting the truth so that you can actually live an empowered, prosperous life. And here's the other thing. Empowerment and prosperous, really what that comes down to is quality food, quality water, and good conditioning where you're not constantly stressed out. Like you're in a condition where you're not constantly just stressed out for no reason whatsoever. And here's the other thing. Your nature is joy, right? So the reason that you are constantly seeking things in this section of the maze, this pleasure, because let's call it, I was going to call it the pleasure section, but that could be interpreted a couple different ways. Well, whatever. We'll call it the pleasure section. It's basically like Pleasure Island in Pinocchio, right? This is where everybody goes to just have a good time. And suddenly, when you're in this section of the maze, you look around at the people and how they're actually not joyful. They constantly need something else. They constantly need any form of attention or acknowledgement to just make them feel like they're alive, or some kind of dopamine hit where they're doing all these crazy things, whether it's out of lust or wrath or anything like that. These are the sins. This is like where the sins breed amongst themselves. And to get out of that section, there's people still trying to keep you in. All of these people, you're going to lose a lot of people on this path. Okay? This is another part of why you're going to be having to be delivered from sin, is because, and pray to be delivered from sin, is because so many people want to keep you in that pleasure section of the maze. Why? Because they're the crabs in the bucket. It's a crabs in the bucket mentality. They can't stand to see you actually being joyful and creating a life for yourself on your own. And suddenly, whoever, like whether you're male or female, if this man or this woman rejected you a while back or did something to you, and now all of a sudden you've built your life to the point to where you're actually genuinely happy about yourself and where you are and where you're going. Maybe you don't even have as much as they do, quote unquote, materialistically, but inside, in your heart and in your soul, you've got a fire that's lit. You've got something within you that is just waiting to be poured out, and you're doing it. Or maybe you are doing it. You are doing it. That's exactly when the devil's going to try to come to get you and sway you back into the pleasure section of the maze. Okay? And even with YouTube, me starting YouTube, I had a lot of spiritual attacks in my dreams, and specifically with the succubus. It was almost like the more people I would try to help and the more people I reached, the more the succubus tried to attack me. Because lust is one of my weakest points in my sins. Lust is something, I think every man can understand this to some degree, but for me, lust is one of my 3 that I would say that I have to continually work on, because it was as if I was completely, before I was who I am now, and when I was like 200 pounds or so, I didn't have like any female attention, and now I've got more than enough. I've got more than I know what to do with. And it's great in some instances, but in others it's like it's not exactly fun all the time, because especially when you're a man with morals and standards. Holy crap. Some women will get pissed off because they just want to have a good time with you. They're the succubus Jezebel spirit. They're the Jezebel to the bezel. And they just want to have a good time and suck your spiritual energy dry because they can't generate that on their own. And when you say no, why, you think you're better than me? It's like, no, I don't think I'm better than you. I deserve something better. Like that's sorry. That is what it is. But anyways, guys, I hope this message was useful and insightful. And until next time, peace be with you.